Hey everyone, it's Emily, and I've got Douglas Tsoi here with me. Douglas, welcome. Welcome to Putty Like.
Hey, thanks, Emily.
Douglas is the founder of Pugs, Portland Underground Grad School, which is like very much in line with our whole philosophy here at Putty Like. So why don't you just like start off by telling us what Pugs is all about?
Yeah, Pugs is a school for lifelong learners. It's essentially classes that run a month on topics that Portlanders really would love to discuss in person as opposed to just stay at home and learn by themselves.
Yeah. So obviously it's like a local Portland thing. Um, but do you know if this kind of thing happens elsewhere, or is it just kind of like, or do you have any plans to sort of expand at some point? I'm curious. Because
Yeah, people keep on talking about like Pugs could become the Uber or the Airbnb of lifelong education. Um, but right now we're in Portland. It'd be cool to see it in other places, but we're just focused here right now. I
yeah,
mean, if anyone at Putty Like wanted to start an underground grad school, that would be pretty cool.
that's awesome. So tell us a bit about like what are some of the classes that you guys offer?
Let's see. I'm just gonna look at what we have in June. Hold on.
Cool.
Um, in June, we have How to Teach and How to Learn, which is about the 21st century model of education, the importance of Wes Anderson, um, Walking Portland, History and Architecture, Middle Bowie, I Am What I Play. That's David Bowie's middle portion of his life. This is the second of three. Um, Unlocking the Wisdom of the Yoga Sutras and Improvisation for Transformation.
That's awesome. So they're like all over the place in all different fields, it sounds like.
All over the place. Yeah, it's amazing. The thing I would say, Emily, is so I go to every class, like multi potentially, right? Um, and because I don't choose to go to like the classes I like, I go to everything. My mind has really opened up.
I bet. That's awesome. And so, how did Pugs start? Was it like out of your own desire to want to just keep learning, or did you see a need for it, or was it a bit of both?
Yeah, I'm someone who always wanted to go back to grad school. Like, I'd be like, oh, like I should get a PhD in behavioral economics, or like, oh, AI is super important. I should learn more about AI. Or like, hey, MBA. MBA would be super cool to get. But there was never a reason to spend $100,000 to do it. Um, and online courses I find a little dissatisfying. So I essentially created the thing that I wanted. I wanted school and community for everyday life.
And it seems to me that like it's also solving this bigger issue, which is like just how unaffordable education is, and how people want to keep learning, but do I go into crazy debt for that? Is it worth it, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be super interesting to think about education as a human right, um, and the current, education system as sort of restricting that.
Yeah. And your classes are pretty affordable, right?
Yeah, they're based on the basic wage of Portland, which is about $15 an hour. So I multiply that times six because that's how much class time you spend in a month. So it's six times 15, which is about $90. So I wanted people to pay what they could afford, and we actually have a radical pricing policy where if you can't even afford that, we will give you scholarships, and then that scholarship fund is actually funded by people who can pay more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the whole idea is to build a community of lifelong learners. So, asking people to contribute if they can, and asking people to come and contribute what even if they can't afford the full amount, to still come as part of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, have you always been, someone who's curious about a lot of different things, and kind of, have you always been like a super learner?
Well, I think it's interesting. I went to Montessori school, so I
Uh-huh.
think like Montessori, like more than any other decision, and it wasn't even my decision, Emily, like changed my life. Like Montessori just makes you a curious person. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had like, even before starting Portland Underground Grad School, I was a lawyer, I was a school teacher, I did climate change activism, and like this is like my fourth or fifth career. So I don't know, is Montessori a curse or a blessing?
Sounds like it was a blessing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So would you say that you had parents who encouraged this in you?
Oh no.
Oh no, really?
No. Like I grew up in an immigrant Chinese family where you were supposed to like, do well in school, get a high paying job and like go through the system.
Oh,
But I just never fit in the system. Like
yeah.
the system that never felt right.
But they put you in a Montessori school. That's cool.
Yeah, I think that was their greatest regret. Yeah, I'm totally kidding.
And I've found that like certain projects or jobs will be a little bit more, or sometimes a lot more interdisciplinary or multifaceted than others. And the ones that are more on that end I tend to stick with them longer. And I would imagine that Pugs is kind of like that for you. Like there's so much that you get to learn about within your job now that I could imagine you sticking with this for longer than maybe your past careers. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think the fascinating thing is like when you like do run your own business, it takes you where you want to be. Like the metaphor that I have in my head is I saw it on a poster. It's a Japanese saying. It's the frog in the deep well doesn't know of the great ocean. And before my mission is to help people learn and feel close to their communities. And I thought I was doing that before. I ran a big education and training program for a energy nonprofit. I was a school teacher before. But like when you actually start doing things for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you realize like everything before was just sort of what you really wanted to do.
Mm.
But when you run your own business, the business becomes like a personification of what you care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And it sounds like you also, like, I've noticed that a lot of people will start businesses to solve their own problems, and it sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Right. Yeah. I figured that there were other people who wanted to keep on going to school without paying tens of thousands of dollars to go.
Yeah, cool. Um, so did you was it a process kind of coming to terms with your multi-potentiality, or were you always just like, yeah, I just want to do a lot of different things and learn about a lot of different things, no sweat?
Well, so yeah, that's a fascinating question. I think like there's always this idea that you should stick with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of craft and like if you really want to become good at something, you're going to spend years and years and just focus on the practice of it and care about nothing else. I felt that pull, but I think the way I think about it is my craft is learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really good at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I don't know if you can speak to this because it sounds like it was part of the problem that caused you to create Pugs, but do you have advice for anyone who might be watching who isn't in Portland and who wants to, it can be advice on independent learning or on, finding some kind of community to learn with, or just anything that can help, if someone wants to keep learning but doesn't want to pay for grad school or something.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I think about is there are autodidacts, right? Like there's people who can like just learn by themselves. They can just read books upon books upon books. Most of us just aren't like that. Like we need a community, and that's what Putty Like is for, right? Like we need a community of people who keep us accountable for learning. So I think finding a community that is willing to do the work. Like I don't think meetups create enough work for each other. There's not enough commitment. There's not enough accountability to each other. I think like finding things within your city that require commitment, like martial arts might be really really cool because there's a dojo, right? And you go and you practice with other people. I think gyms are very equivalent. Like you go and there are other people there, and you become more motivated for that. Academically, I think it's harder.
Yeah. I mean, I've taken classes at community colleges before, but sometimes the level isn't quite the same, or like I'll be surrounded by like, 18-year-olds who like really don't care. Like it's not quite the same. It's not.
Well, you took a Pugs
I
class.
did that. Like, that's what I'm comparing it to in my
Yeah,
mind.
what was your experience compared to a community college?
It completely different. Um, yeah, I did community college. Like I took a chemistry class just because I was interested, and the material was mostly interesting. The teacher was a little bit boring or bored, and the students were also a little bit bored. And the atmosphere was kind of like it felt mandatory. Like most of these people had to be here, and at Pugs, everyone was just there because they wanted to learn, and people were super into it. It was also a much smaller group, a lot more intimate, So it just very, very different settings. And of course, the chemistry class had homework and labs and stuff. But sometimes those were fun, but not always. Yeah, I mean, I thought rewilding was great.
Yeah, I think you hit on something key that people are there at Pugs voluntarily. Like they voluntarily chose to take the class. Like they're not fulfilling any requirements. They're not trying to get a degree. And
Right.
because of that, well, there's two things. Number one, we can offer classes that nobody would think of offering, like at an institution, right? Like no one's like teaching improvisation for transformation.
Right.
No one's teaching the importance of Wes Anderson. I don't think. I don't know. But the other thing is everyone is there super eager to learn.
Yeah. And that also goes to this like deeper philosophy, which is like, what is the point of learning? Like, I think some people feel like it should lead somewhere, like it should be kind of this practical thing that allows us to then get a job or, build a career in this field or whatever. And then there's also this attitude on the other end of things where it's like learning has inherent value in and of itself. It's about kind of developing as a human, understanding more about the world, connecting with people and different ideas. And not that those, you can't believe a little bit of both, but I think that was a key thing about Pugs, where it was like, no one's here to get a degree. People are just here to learn.
Well, I think you're right. What Pugs actually does is it allows people to learn what they really want to learn. And so it's not only just for the enjoyment, but there are people people who take rewilding really, really are interested in what does it mean to be sort of trapped in society, and like what does it mean to sort of get a little more freedom from that. So it's almost like it's not essential, but it's also vitally essential.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it does have practical use. I guess just that's defined a little bit differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's not for like professional advancement.
Right, exactly. So what's coming up at Pugs? I know there's an exciting thing happening in June. If you want to plug that.
Yeah, June 18th is it's Pugs PDX Fest, which is our annual. Well, it's our first one, but it's our annual conference where all the Pugs teachers are getting together and talking and teaching about the theme of time. So the cool thing about Pugs is like all these little communities form and get together and become really close over the course of a month. And I see all these different communities form, and it's really, really cool. But like June 18th is the one day where all the different little communities get together and be together as a larger community and like can share ideas, and you can go to different instructors and hear about like time in terms of like geologic time for earthquakes, or time and having a social justice career, or I'm teaching about the future of education. So it's sort of like getting as big of a general cross section of education as you can in one day. The way we describe it is, have you ever wanted to go back to school but only for one day? This is it.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, I hope that some of the people watching this check it out. It's in Portland, so obviously not everyone's going to be able to make it, but I know that quite a few of you are in Portland, so check it out. It's pugspdx.com. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think what you're doing is so wonderful, and I hope to see like growth, and I hope to see more of this kind of thing. I feel like it's just like a perfect fit for curious multi-potentialites, and it's so cool.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks
Yeah.
for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks for being here.